Ladies and mostly gentlemen, today we're going to be continuing my coverage of the Warfront weapons. Last week we checked out all of the Alliance weapons so far, and today we're going to be checking out all the weapons that are currently in the game files for the Horde. Strangely enough, the Horde actually have a few different weapon models that the Alliance don't have, as of this current alpha build. So the Horde currently have models for 2 shields, one-handed axe, two-handed axe, bow, gun, glaive, dagger, one-handed mace, two-handed mace, polearm, staff, one-handed sword, and the wand. I do find it kind of strange how they've made models for specific weapons and none of the others at the moment. You would have thought they would have made like a Horde axe and then an Alliance axe right after, but I don't know the inner workings of the art team, so I have no idea. There's been a lot of talk of Horde bias in the expansion so far, with the Zandalari and the Orcs getting a lot of love in the alpha so far, and well, let's see if it continues with the weapon models. I know how I feel about all of these, and I'll let you decide by the end of the video if you think this is getting a little out of hand. So without further ado, let's check out some of the Warfront weapons for the Horde so far. So starting off with something that the Alliance don't have, this is the one-handed axe. Not exactly a strong start, but you gotta start somewhere. So it's a very basic design and all 3 colours don't really add much to the axe at all. If you look closely, you can actually see there are some very slight blood markings on the blade, which is a nice little bit of detail. You'll see as we continue this list that a lot of the Horde weapons look very rustic and homemade, which is a nice feature and definitely gives them that extra little charm over the Alliance weapons. Not much else to say about this really. It's pretty high res and it looks pretty mean. Overall, an okay axe, but nothing really groundbreaking. It just kind of looks like a bit of like some sort of quest reward. So staying on the topic of axes, this is the two-handed version. Now this is so badass and it's exactly the kind of thing that you think of when you think of a Horde weapon. With the handle looking like it was made from things you find on the floors of Orgrimmar and a large skull on the top, it just looks amazing. The little details on this thing are great as well. If you look closely, it really does look like it's been in some sort of war already, with the paint on the top faded away in some parts. The use of spikes and skulls is always something you'll see with the Horde, and I think this axe really makes great use of it. This comes in 3 colours like most of the weapons on this list, and personally I really like the maroon coloured one. I think the subtle change of colour on the blade itself looks really great, but the darker one will look great coupled with a good transmog. Overall, a really nice looking axe for the Horde players, and definitely better than the one-handed axe, which in my opinion should have just looked like a smaller version of this one. That would have been pretty cool to see actually. So now, moving on into maces. So this is the one-handed mace for the Horde, and it comes in 4 different colours. The handle on this actually looks slightly more low res than the rest of the mace, especially when you get up close to it in the model viewer. The mace features a very mean look with spikes and metal throughout. The top of the mace has these awesome looking red crystals on both sides and the top of the mace. Just looking at it as a whole, it looks like it's just gonna hurt. If you got caught by those spikes on the side, you definitely know about it. Overall, a really nice looking mace, and all 4 colours really do change up this mace for the better, and it makes every single one of them seem very unique. So let's now check out the two-handed mace. So firstly, it's not very similar to the one-handed version, but that's okay because this thing is just crazy looking. At first glance on some of the fan sites, I actually thought this thing was flat, but seeing it in the game you can see now that it's got a massive ball of death on the end of it. So this ball of death comes complete with massive spikes around it and the Horde logo on each side. It really is an awesome looking mace. The handle has a very homemade feel to it with metal and fur lining, something we've seen in the Horde Warfront armor as well. The very end of the mace has this metal ring with 3 spikes on it. Very cool indeed. Much like the one-handed mace, this also comes in 4 colours. Overall, a very nice mace, and honestly, I think it might be better than the two-handed axe, but we're yet to see a Horde two-handed sword come through the game files, so it's all to play for on the two-handed weapons front. So this is the bow. Made from wood with fur-lined metal on top. I think it's pretty cool. It follows the theme of the other weapons and features a ton of spikes and sharp edges. Looking at it from the very front, it looks like some sort of crazy monster, and it's a really awesome look. The animations on this thing are really nice as well. When pulling back, the metal parts of the bow come together in a very fluid and natural way. It comes in 3 different colours, a dark gold and black version, a standard red and wood version, and a slightly lighter version of the dark one. It's a pretty great design and it's massive as well, which really gives it a very mean and powerful vibe. Overall, a really nice bow and probably a good choice for hunters. That being said, you haven't seen the gun yet. Speaking of which, this is the Horde gun, and it is a beast. So this massive gun just blows the Alliance gun out of the water, and you can clearly see why. From the obscene amount of spikes used and the shape of it, it just screams Horde pride. Even the chains have spikes on them. It comes in 3 different colours, and each of the colours looks great, and the best one for me is this classic red look. The gun also features these massive horns on the front of it. They're so big that you'd mistake the thing for a new Zandalari druid form. The tiny details on this thing do make it great as well, from the little bit of cloth hanging down off one one of the tusks to the chain swinging in the wind when firing. Overall, a great gun, and I just have a sneaky suspicion that hunters will be using this instead of the bow. Just my 2 cents really. So next up, we're going to look at something we've never had, faction Warglaives. So obviously, with the introduction of demon hunters in Legion, came a new weapon type. So this is the Horde Warglaive, and it looks absolutely amazing. It comes in 3 colours, and the only race that'll be able to wield this is obviously the Blood Elves. I love the massive Horde logo in the centre, and the use of red in the 2 red versions. The dark green variant also looks super menacing as well. At first glance, it does look very similar to the bow, but on closer inspection, you can see that it's designed with demon hunters in mind. It's got a very Horde aesthetic and it looks great. I can't wait to see it in action when we can finally get our hands on it in Battle for Azeroth. I also can't wait to see what the Alliance version of this will be like. It could be very interesting. Okay, so now back on the 2-handers with the Horde Polearm. Now I love the Horde PvP Polearm from vanilla. I think the Alliance and Horde versions of that weapon are great. So this is what we have in Battle for Azeroth for the Horde. And honestly, I'm a little disappointed. It basically looks like a trident with some minor Horde features. It's not particularly thick and it doesn't look particularly menacing. That being said, it does feature a few spikes around it and it still looks pretty sharp, but still, I don't think it lives up to the full potential. It comes in 3 colours like most of the weapons, and even those colour variants don't bring it to life that much. Overall, it's certainly not the best, but it's certainly not the worst. But I think the Alliance definitely have a better polearm in my opinion. So next up, let's talk about the dagger. So this is it. It comes in 3 colours of course, and there really isn't that much to say about it. It features a red gem on the top of the hilt, like we've seen in other weapon models on this list. I do like the subtle red on the red version though. It's not overpowering and silly looking, although the blade does look a little purple on that one in some lights. One little detail I do like is at the top of the hilt. It's these tiny teeth featured on each side, with one of them even having a piercing through it similar to Durotan in the Warcraft movie. It's a nice missable detail. Overall, not a bad dagger, but it's not mind-blowing by any standards. Sticking with blades for the moment, let's check out the one-handed sword. So this is the only sword to appear on this list because the 2-hander is yet to be added. But this sword is pretty damn cool. It's so big that it could easily get away with being a 2-hander. The 3 different colours give the sword a completely different look and I love it. The use of spikes at the bottom of the blade look great and the colour contrasts look good as well, especially with the silver and red. It features these horn-like things coming out the top of the hilt and it looks really cool. It would have been nice to see a similar piercing like the dagger, but I guess they don't want to overuse such a subtle addition like that. Overall, a really nice sword, and I can't wait to see what the 2-hander looks like once they add it to the game files. So staying with melee classes and one-handers, let's talk about the 2 shields that are coming to the Horde with Warfronts. This is the first one, and holy shit, it is amazing. It features a prominent Horde logo in the centre, and on each side are these massive tusks strapped to it, with fire coming out of each of them. It comes in 3 colours, the classic red, green, and a sort of blue colour. Personally, I'm a fan of the red, as you'd imagine, but the other colours do look cool nonetheless. The details on this are awesome though. The glowing cracks on the top of the tusks from where the fire comes out looks great, and the detail on the metal and leather straps look good as well. And this is the second one. Admittedly, not as cool, but it's still pretty nice. This one features the giant tusks, but this time they're tied to the top of the shield in a very rough looking way. It comes in the same colour scheme as the previous one, and it features an even bigger Horde logo in the centre. The massive spikes on the shield do make it stand out from the other shield though, really giving it that mean and offensive look that would work in more practical ways as opposed to decoration. Overall, a great looking shield, but I still think the first one blows the second one out of the water, and as per usual, they're both still way better than any of the Alliance ones. So for our penultimate weapon, let's give the caster some love by checking out the Horde's staff. So once again, I'm a little disappointed. The staff features a cool looking crystal at the end, surrounded by spikes, with spikes on the bottom of the staff as well. Beyond that, there really isn't much else to the staff. No massive Horde logos or anything to really make you feel like you have Horde pride while using this staff. It comes in 3 colours which aren't really far from each other really. I think possibly adding more spikes and maybe some Horde logos would have made this staff a little bit cooler. It's certainly not the worst thing ever made, but much like the axe, it just kind of feels like a quest reward. And finally, let's briefly talk about the wand. As mentioned in the Alliance weapon preview, it looks like Blizzard are looking to make a return to wands in the game. At least that's what it seems like. This wand isn't bad though, it's sort of like a compressed version of the staff with a little crystal on the end with spikes around it. It comes in 3 colours, with one of the colours changing the crystal colour from red to purple, which is pretty cool. Overall, not a bad wand by any means, but I'm just curious if anyone will ever use it when it comes into the game. And that's pretty much it for the Horde Warfront weapons, as of the latest alpha build. As the alpha progresses, we'll probably see some of these weapons change dramatically, and we'll probably see some additional ones being added, such as the 2-handed sword. so it's more than likely this video will be a part 1, and part 2 will eventually come out once those items are added to the game. So let me know down in the comment section below what you think of these weapons, and whether you think the Horde have better weapons compared to the Alliance. Would love to know what you guys think. So before I go, I'd like to give a massive shout out to my amazing patrons and YouTube sponsors. You guys are awesome. If you'd like to support the channel in that way, links are down below. So leave a like on this video if you liked it, guys, and subscribe if you haven't. I also have a partnered Discord channel with over 3,000 members. Link is down below. And with that, I'll see you next time.